Hello again, everyone. Week two, Nathaniel here. I'm going to be walking through some of the insights that I found and gathered from this week's material. So, as a brief overview of this week's discussion, I'm going to be sharing with you from the essays on Weber, White, Taylor, and Follett. And there was a lot in these articles I wanted to share and bring to the discussion, but for time's sake, I just wanted to focus on some of the key concepts that were introduced by each of these articles and how I think they work towards building a more consistent and transparent government bureaucracy today. So I think that Max Weber had a lot of critical contributions to the field of public administration. And overall, just in general, I think he is focusing on in his bureaucracy article how the the government bureaucracy in general is a system of rules and regulations which are specifically designed uh, not just to maximize organizational efficiency, but more so to make the government system more consistent and in that way more efficient. And if you are in the classics book in the sixth edition, on page 43, he's writing down the characteristics of a functioning bureaucracy. And he talks about, the principle of fixed and official jurisdictional areas, having ordered rules and laws that govern administration and its regulations. Then he also talks about the office hierarchy and how there are levels and chains of command which are necessary in order to pass orders and to give orders, which we'll talk about a little bit later with Follett. But also the having the basis of written documents, where he talks about files which are necessary for keeping track of all these rules and regulations and for also maintaining government transparency in its relations to the people that it serves. Reading through Leonard White's essay, I thought it was a really cool build off of Weber's characteristics of bureaucracy, and that government administration is really broken down into three parts, and that is the administrative law, which is the rules and regulations which govern the administration, and then also the administration itself, how it carries out those rules and follows them, and then also its responsibility to the people, because being a a public system, it is responsible to public opinion and the needs and desires of the community. And in page 51 of the classics book, White is writing about how these three parts of the system kind of correlate, how they work together, and how the government is supposed to follow these set rules, but also make itself representative to the people. And he talks about here where he says the objective of public administration is the efficient conduct of business. These two goals are not only different, but may at times conflict. And he also goes on to quote Professor Freund, where he says, the thought of those interested in public administration seems at the present time to be mainly concerned with the problems of efficiency. And I think what Leonard White is trying to hint at here is that government is really hard to make efficient when you have these competing and conflicting interests, whether it's the administrative laws you have constructed and the will of the people going against some of those at the same time. So going back to Taylor, we kind of see where Weber and White started to get some of their notions for government bureaucracy, and really it has its roots in um, public administration just being the management of men and materials, as White was saying. But public administration, the study itself has to be constantly evolving. And that's really, I think, what Friedrich Taylor was trying to hint at in his scientific management essay, is that getting down to and breaking down each details of the workman, you get to the root functions of it, and you understand how that small little process contributes to the rest of the administration as a whole. And I think with something that is always changing and needs to be evolving with the changing times, I think understanding scientific management from Taylor's perspective is a huge and critical priority for government administrators to focus on going forward. So in Fartlett's article, she acknowledges the contributions of Weber and of Taylor and of Wyatt and how they were building a government bureaucracy that was organized and efficient and consistent. But what she was trying to say in this essay was, what about the workmen? What about the relationships between subordinates and the managers? And what she was kind of bringing forth in her article was the idea that orders being received by the workmen are sometimes viewed in a very negative way. And the connotations that those portray to the worker kind of leads to this sense of disrespect and of lost responsibility on the part of the workman. And so what Follett was trying to advocate for was a new way of approaching situations, whether it was private or public enterprises, and changing how managers worked with their employees. And I think it was Dr. Sundstrom, she termed it as a reciprocal relationship with the workmen, where the manager was not just working over his employees, his or her employees, but working with them rather on a detailed basis and approaching things situationally rather than just passing orders to those below so that the way they could get their work done, but rather using the points from Friedrich Taylor and from Max Weber and from Leonard White, but also building relations with employees in order to maximize their efficiency and become even more responsible with each other. And so I think all of these articles in general really did help to shape the public administration of today. And beginning with the rules and regulations, kind of the characteristics of bureaucracy as, kind of started by Taylor and then built upon by Weber and later White. I think those were really essential to creating a government bureaucracy today that is well functioning and consistent, but also is able to relate to the needs of the people, which I think Follett was able to contribute to a lot in how managers relate to their employees, but also how the system is supposed to evolve and change. And I think that in today's day and age has really been kind of pushed forward by the advance in government communications through the uses of social media. You look at how cities and state governments and politicians, they use Twitter and Facebook as a platform all the time for sharing political opinions or statuses or even official government document updates. They also use those social media platforms as that. And I think that because of these changing times and the uses of technology ever advancing, government has to continue to evolve to keep up with all of these changes in order to be more efficient and more consistent with the needs of the people. So that wraps up my takeaways from this week in the articles. And I just want to leave you with one question, which maybe you guys can touch on in the discussion. But do you think that increased public transparency in government today may be unconsciously impacting administrative efficiency? So I'd love to hear what you guys think on that, but talk to you soon.